Hi everyone, I'm Ginger Balch from In Sheep's Clothing Yarn Shop, welcoming you to another episode of Focus on Fiber. As a knitter who rediscovered knitting 25 years ago, I never expected that it would eventually take me on this wonderful adventure of spinning as well. Since I've always enjoyed learning about the history of things, I felt the need to find out the story behind yarn and how it's made. I thought today would be a great chance for you to find out about spinning. So I originally learned how to spin on a spinning wheel, which is a little bit more complicated than the typical drop spindle. So today we're going to talk about the drop spindle. Now, drop spindle, you can have what they call a bottom whorl spindle, or you can have what this one is, a top whorl spindle. And the difference is that when you're spinning on the spindle, you're starting from the top, like this. And the bottom whorl actually works this way, and you're spinning with the whorl facing down. So this is a drop spindle, and there's also, which I'll talk about later too, are support spindles. And these you do not just spin and drop down, they're actually supported. And there's all different types of these. Now, spinning has been around probably since it was the first kind of fiber work that people did, and it would have been like thousands and thousands of years old. I mean, lots of thousands of years. So I'm going to show you how to card first. Now, when you have your fiber, what you want to do, I happen to have some wool fiber right now. And as you can see right here, this has been washed. And you can see these curls. These are the locks of the wool. This actually right here, this is how it was shorn off the sheep. This is the butt end. So this is where it would have been cut off the sheep. And these are, it's the end of the fleece. And you can see the crimp. See the curls, the little bit of curls that's in there? Now, depending on the breed that you're working with, the fleece can be totally different. You can have some that are really, really tight and much shorter. This happens to be called a border Leicester breed. And I happen to like these because it's a longer staple. This is called a staple. And a little bit more lustrous. Some are very woolly and a little, maybe the wool is a little duller look-wise. This has kind of like a gloss to it. So when you go to card your wool, what you're going to do is you take your locks and you're going to tease them open, which means that you're just kind of pulling them open like this. You want to get rid of those little crimps on the end here. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of these. And now what I did first was I washed this fleece. So what it means is I would have taken the raw wool and I get a sink full of hot water with some soap in it, and I put my fleece in there and I let it soak for a while. And what happens is all the lanolin, which is the natural oil from the fleece, rises up. And you change your water as many times as need be until it's clean, and then you rinse it in between. And then what you do is you take it and you lay it out and you let it dry. Let it air dry. And you have to be careful too when you're washing it that you don't agitate it, because if you do that, you're going to end up with this big felted mass of wool, and you won't be able to take it apart. You won't be able to tease it open at all to card it out. And it won't be good for too much. Okay, so now that I've got this teased open, take my wool and I'm going to, what they call, lash it onto the carders like this. Just kind of grab these are teeth, and they kind of grab onto the fiber. And now once I do that, I take the other hand carder, and I don't push it into the teeth like this. Just very gently graze the top of the wool. And what happens is it goes from one carder onto the next. There's a little flicking wrist action that goes on that helps to move the fiber from one carder to the other. You want to make sure that you don't overlap it. So see how it goes from one to the other? And then once I've taken it all off of one, I'm going to switch the carders, and I'm going to do the other side. And you do this as many times as is needed. You can see now how the fiber is getting straightened out, and you can see how it's nice and straight like that. And also, while this is happening, it's kind of like brushing your hair or combing your hair, taking all the snarls and tangles out of it. And as I'm doing this, some of the hay, well, this didn't have hay in it, but there's little bits of organic matter in there, dirt and stuff, dust that falls down onto your lap. So it also is kind of cleaning some of that out of there. So now this is good, like how that looks. And what I'm going to do now is take it off of the hand carder. So I'm just going to kind of fold it back like that. And different people do it different ways. At this point, you could take it and you can roll it off like this, or just lift it off. What I like to do is I like to just kind of pull it off, roll it off with the other hand carder. And then it comes off into this piece here, and this is called a rolag, R-O-L-A-G. And this is all ready for me to spin. This will just pull off nice and easy for me to spin. So I'm just going to do another one like that. So I have a little bit to spin with. So again, I'm just opening up, teasing open the fiber. Now sometimes as you're doing this, you might find little bits and pieces, little shortcuts, what they call second cuts, where the shearer went back a second time and now you've got a short piece. You want to take those out of your fiber because otherwise it will get carded in, you will spin it, and you'll end up with this little lump in your yarn. And it's just not the best thing. It will give it a little texture if you want some texture, but if you want a smooth, consistent yarn, the better your fiber is processed, the better the result is. Kind of like that saying, garbage in, garbage out. Same thing with this. Now, these are hand carders, but they also have something called drum carders that you can crank, and it has your teeth in a round piece, so that as your wool goes through, it goes around the carders and comes out. So you can do it faster, you can do more of it. There we go. Okay, so now I have 2 row legs here to work with. When I'm spinning, I like to do like a whole basket full of roll-legs so I can just spin, spin, spin and not have to stop and card and spin and card. Okay, so now this is the spindle I will work with. And they come in all different weights, different styles. Basic one is you have a little hook, which makes life much easier if you have the hook there, and a little cutout here so you have something to hold on to your yarn. Like that. Now, this spindle here, basically the same thing, just a different wood, little pretty thing. Some of the wood spindle makers get real crazy and do some really, really amazing spindles that spinners like to collect. So, what I'm doing, and actually what I want to do is, I want to show you right from the very beginning. This already has some yarn spun on it. But I want to show you how to do it right from the get-go. So I'm going to take this one. Now, normally what you're going to need is what they call a leader. You need a piece of yarn on here to get started. But with this kind of a spindle, you really don't even need that. You can create your own leader. So by taking your fiber and the hook that you already have on there, you just take some of that fiber and get it hooked on. And I just support the spindle a little bit, and I start to give it a twist. So what I'm doing with my right hand here is I'm drafting the fiber out, and then I'm twisting the spindle clockwise to put the twist in it. Let me just get back. And the nice thing about the support spindle, especially, not the support, the top whirl, when I'm teaching classes with this, is you can park it. It's great for a beginner spinner. You can park it between your knees like this, and then I can draft out the fiber and kind of want to keep the fiber over your wrist here so that it doesn't get caught. And now I'm just going to give it a twist. Whoops. Give it a twist clockwise. And what's happening is it's building the twist up here in the fiber. Now, I've got enough twist in there. What I want to do now is this is going to become my leader. So what I do is I take it off the hook. And actually, I'm just going to wind it around my fingers a little bit. And then I'm going to tie it onto the shaft of the spindle underneath the whorl. If I can catch it here. You want to make sure you do it tight enough that it doesn't spin around on the shaft. Okay, so now I have it on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind it onto the shaft clockwise, like the same way I've been spinning it. And just put it into the little slot there. And then around the hook. And now I can park it. And I'm going to put a pinch right here. You see how there's a tuft of fiber right here that has not been spun, and this has been spun right here. So I'm just going to put a pinch right there where the twist ends. And then I'm going to draft my fiber out. Now I can draft it as thick or as thin as I want it to be spun up. Now you see as soon as I let go, some of that twist started to ride up the fiber. So now all I'm going to do is clockwise, I'm going to add some twist to that. And then I can stop it. This is such an easy way to spin. Do the pinch and then draft out some more. And you'll see how that goes right up. I can keep drafting a little bit more if I want. And then put some twist into it. And then I can stop just a little bit more. You don't want to go too, like an arm's length is good. You don't want to go way out to the next room with this. You want to be able to have it under control. So I give it some more twist. And then just undo the hook. Let's see if we can need to get closer to the hook there. There we go. So undo the hook, and I'm going to put it on. You can also use your thigh to kind of wind it on as well when you get better at it. But you just put it on like this. And then find the slot again, put it on the hook, park it, and then just draft out the fiber. And put some more, let's just get this out of the way, like that. And then when you get better at it, you can be drafting as you go. Just give it a twist, and then just keep drafting. Drafting. Now I'm not doing it too thick. Some people, when you first get started, it can be thick and thin, lumpy bumpy. But once you get the hang of it, it's really hard to get that lumpy bumpy back again. And right now, art yarns are very, very popular. So everybody wants the thick and thin yarns, the nubby. So beginner spinners kind of have it made. They can really do that right at the beginning. So right in my slot again. Park it, I'm just going to start it. And there's something very, very soothing about this. This hook is just a little, there we go. And like I said, this type of spinning is ancient. People think of spinning as the spinning wheel. Well, spinning wheel really has only been around for maybe 700 years. Where this, thousands of years, people have been doing this. And they probably figure that people somehow started with like maybe a rock or something, and they figured out that if you took the fiber and you twisted it, it made it stronger. And then you could actually, they probably weren't making clothing with it at the time. They were thinking more along the lines of spinning fiber, like plant fibers or whatever fiber was available to them, to make baskets with. Or things baskets to be able to, because they were more nomadic and they were carrying things around with them and needed something to put these things in. So this worked. Oops, I can feel I don't have enough twist. That's going to break just like that. So if you were asking what happens when it breaks, there we go. So what you would do is I'm just going to back it up a little bit to where it's good and strong and spun. All I have to do is I want to leave a little tuft of the wool, and I'm going to join it with the fiber I'm spinning now. I kind of overlap it, and then I draft it together. And it'll just grab that new fiber, and it'll become one. So you can keep doing that all day long, breaking and joining, breaking and joining. And it's not a big deal. Now, so the idea is once you've gotten a whole spindle of this spun up, what you can do is then you can take it off and you can weave with it. Usually what you want to do is once you've taken it off, you want to wash it. Now, what's going to come off of this drop spindle is what they call a singles, because it's just a single strand that's been spun. And this yarn right here is a singles that I probably did on my spinning wheel because I have a whole lot of it on here. And you can see that it's just one single strand spun. Now, this is fine if I want to weave with, and you can knit with it, but the thing is with the knitting is because it's only been twisted one way, when you go to knit with it, your yarn wants to do what they call skew. It wants to move in that one direction because it hasn't been plied, which means you'll take two strands of yarn and you'll spin them together. And a plied yarn looks like this. You have two strands that have been twisted together. And as a result, it's what they call a balanced yarn. It will be nice and straight. It won't skew on you as you're knitting. And it just works very nicely for knitting. Now what I'm doing right here on this spindle is I am plying. And I'll just show you what I'm doing here. What I did was I have a ball winder, and I took one bobbin of the yarn that I spun, the singles, and I wound it onto the ball winder. So that kind of what it does is it makes a ball that has an inside and an outside pull. So I've got two strands here on this ball. So what I do, and you can see here, this is all 2-ply. What I do is I take the yarn on here, the two strands together, and park it here and just get this straightened out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spin these two strands together. But the other thing is, because I spun clockwise, I want to do this counterclockwise. So let me get this down a little further here. So I'm going to spin it counterclockwise to get the twist for those 2-plies together. And then once I've done that, I'm going to wind it onto my spindle. And again, counterclockwise. I have to think about that. You get so used to doing it clockwise that your brain is going that direction. Okay, so there we go. So that's a 2-ply yarn. So I'll continue doing this until I've used all this yarn up, and then I will end up with something like this. These are all 2-ply yarns. And this one here is like a really good example because what it was a dark ply and a light ply, and I spun them together so it gives you kind of that barber pole look, which is pretty effective. And then this is one of my other favorite breeds of sheep. It's called Jacob. It's very prehistoric looking. It looks more goat-like than it does like a sheep. And it's spotted. So you get light and dark in one animal. And what I like to do is just to wash the wool up. I like to card it up, and I just take it as it comes, and then I spin it, and then ply it. So then you get this kind of multicolor. Sometimes you can get really, depending on how much white and black that you use, it can really be very, very striking. This is a little bit, you can see some of the white strands. Sometimes you'll get just a couple of strands that are just white, or sometimes you get that barber pole effect. But I happen to really like that. I love this breed. So I keep talking about fleeces, but the nice thing too is these days it's so easy to get whatever kind of preparation that you want for spinning. So if you don't want to get involved with the whole carding thing or washing wool, you don't have to. You could do something as easy as buying your fiber already prepared. Now this has already been washed, carded, and even dyed. So all you have to do is just spin this. And so what you would do is just take this apart, and then you would break these apart here like that and just spin. And I actually have a bobbin here. This was done on my spinning wheel, but just to give you the idea, this was kind of a slightly multi-blue that was spun with this type of fiber. So if you happen to like more dyed colors, you can get any kind of color that you want. You can also dye it yourself. You can get the fiber like this in a natural color and just dye it however you wish to do it. I'm not a big dyer. There's so many other people that are so good at it. I might as well let them do it. But actually, I really prefer the natural fleece myself. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a control freak. I like to be able to take it right from the fleece, wash it myself, card it the way I want to do it, spin it the way that I want. That's why the spinning is so satisfying, is that you can do exactly what you want, get exactly what you kind of yarn that you want. If you want it thick, if you want it thin. You can do, instead of doing 2-ply, you can do 3-4 plies of yarn. Whatever makes you happy, whatever your project is going to call for. And there's some really terrific books out there too. This Respect the Spindle makes it sound very, very serious. But Abby Frankenmont, her dad, she actually grew up, I believe it was in South America, and she was raised there, and the children would walk around with spindles. They were introduced to them as kind of a toy at first, but a toy that would eventually become a tool. So she became obviously very, very good at this. And I was very privileged to hear her father speak at a Weavers Guild meeting and tell some fabulous stories about their life there. And one of the other things that I wanted to go over with you too is the support spindle. So you have this little bowl, and what you do is, this is one of my little prized possessions. This is from South America, and it's handmade, carved piece of wood for the shaft, and a clay bead. Now what you would do, there's cotton on this. So what you would do is, you would have your cotton, and you're going to spin it in the support like this. Let's see if I can, it's been a while since I've done this. But there we go. But you spin it like this. And what happens is the twist goes up this. And there's something really fun about doing this. I just love taking cotton and spinning it on one of these type of spindles. There's also a spindle, it's a brass spindle. This is from India or Pakistan, and it's called a takli. And it's brass and it's heavier. And this, again, is cotton. And it's very, very, it has some weight to it, but you can spin very fine on it. This is a little wooden bowl. I typically like to have a glass bowl when I'm doing this. But you spin it like this, and it just gives the twist in there. And then you wind it onto the spindle. And this is another support spindle too, from Russia. And you spin with one, and then you ply with the little bit heavier weight spindle. And this is great because they actually do silk and cashmere, so you want something very, very fine and something very, very light. And these spindles, like one is much lighter than the other one is, and when you go to ply, you need something just a little bit heavier to ply those two strands together. But, so I think that pretty much covers it today for the drop spindle. It's a great way to get into spinning. It's an expensive way to do it, and a nice, easy way to do it. You can kind of learn on your own. But if you're more interested in spinning, you can always check out the website, and there's information on that. But thank you again for spending your time with me today, and I hope that you're even more, if you're not moved to pick up a spindle and some fiber, that at least you have gained some insight into the world of spinning. Be sure to check out the website for some interesting links on spinning, and don't forget that it's always important to have a focus on fiber. See you the next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.